Belated birthday greetings as well to Nevis-born Miss Mary Busby, who now resides in St. Eustatius. She recently celebrated her 105th birthday, making her the oldest resident on St. Eustatius. So, we have Miss Leontine Clark, who's 101, Mr. Clarence Hendrickson, who's 102, and Miss Mary Busby, who's 105, all with strong Nevisian genes and Nevisian blood coursing through their veins, and so I say congratulations to them. Let me also congratulate my dear friend, Dr. Judy Nisbet, my not classmate, but schoolmate, Dr. Jeffrey Liebert, and Dr. Lornette Mills. They were the awardees at the 19th Annual NEVDC Honors Banquet, held on September 14th under the theme Doctors, Caring and Healing the Nation. Congratulations to them. While I continue in the vein of offering congratulations, I would want to extend heartiest congratulations to the Nevisians, who were this year awarded in the National Honors Awards. We have the Companion of the Star of Merit, CSM. In the field of education, Elsie Liebert Brandy. I believe those of us who went to school and were taught by her know as Marjorie Liebert Brandy. When I saw Elsie, I wondered who that was. But Elsie Liebert Brandy in the field of education, Hansel Manners in banking and community development, and Perletta Lance from the great village of Hanley's Road for legal and judicial services. And so we congratulate those awardees. The list of awardees for Independence 41, as we know each year the Nevis Island Administration does some local awards. And let me also congratulate them, Mrs. Leonora Brown, who now lives in Prospect in the field of agriculture, Miss Barbara Hendrickson in the field of education, Mrs. Evelina Claxton in the field of education, Mr. John Abbott in the field of entertainment, Mr. Vincent Plug-Eye Perkins in the field of entrepreneurship, Mrs. Joya Walters, Nurse Joya Walters in the field of health, Miss Cheryl Wilkinson in the field of hospitality, Miss Veronica Pamela Brooks from Brownhill and Cox in hospitality and community service, Miss Dolores Boddy, they say she's a dancing lady, from small business, Mr. Wendell Micey Wallace for sport, and Mr. Curvis Scarborough, also my schoolmate, not classmate, classmate of the PS, I believe, in tourism. And so we recognize and congratulate all of them. Sticking with that theme of congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure to offer from this podium congratulations to Miss Kiana Warner. Miss Warner returned home on Monday, September 9th, to a huge celebrations reception at the Charlestown Ferry Terminal, having been judged the winner of the 20th Caribbean Tourism Organization Tropical Shipping Regional Tourism Youth Congress that had been held in the Cayman Islands on September 5th. The new CTO Regional Tourism Youth Minister was greeted by family, friends, classmates, teachers, and officials from the Ministries of Tourism and Education, as well as the Nevis Tourism Authority. The Youth Tourism Minister's parents, Kenny and Nikisha Warner, as well as her younger brother, Kamali, were on hand to welcome her back to Nevis with the principal, teachers, and her classmates from CSS. Judith Liebert from Tropical Shipping, the island manager, was also present to welcome Miss Warner as a local representative for the Congress's title sponsor. Miss Warner is a fifth form student of the Charlestown Secondary School, and she delivered a riveting presentation at the Congress in the Cayman Islands, a signature event of the CTO State of the Tourism Conference, SOTIC. She beat out 11 other young tourism advocates from across the region. Accolades have poured in from all across the region for Ms. Warner, and we certainly wish to join in congratulating her, her parents, her school, and those who have worked so hard to prepare her, and certainly I extend congratulations to the officials at the Ministry of Tourism. Young Kiana Warner is a star. Great things are in store for her, and we heartily commend her for her excellence. She has truly made all of us proud. Ms. Warner would have placed as a regional champion, and I want us to reflect that this is no easy feat. We are truly proud of her. She would have defeated all of the Caribbean, as I said, 11 other contestants. She's the third person from Nevis, and I think this is noteworthy. She's the third person from Nevis to win that competition in its 20-year history. So in 20 years, Nevis has won that regional competition 3 times. We would have won it with Miss Neela Jones, who won in 2013. Mr. Roger Williams won it in 2014. And now Miss Kiana Warner has won it in 2024. For a little island like Nevis to win that regional competition 3 out of 20 times, I think is absolutely phenomenal. And so I congratulate these youngsters for doing such an excellent job. Let me give you some quick updates because we've had a lot happening in the area of disaster management. The Nevis Disaster Management Department, in partnership with the Global Support and Development and Regional UAV Services, successfully executed an unmanned aerial vehicle, basically we know them as drones, training workshop during the period 26 to 30 August 2024 at the Disaster Management EOC building. At the end of that training, the Nevis Disaster Management were donated with one Autel Evo 2 640T enterprise drone and accessories as an in-kind grant contribution with a total value of $5,200. I'm told that this drone is special. It is a drone that will allow them to do searches at night. It's equipped with infrared, and I believe it is also equipped with heat sensors, so that if persons are lost in particular, it gives us an opportunity to locate them. And so I am really happy and would want to extend my gratitude to the Global Support Development for this very timely grant of this drone to our local disaster professionals. The Nevis Disaster Management Department also collaborated with the Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance in completing a damage assessment and need analysis workshop during the period Monday 23rd to 25th September. Participants in that training workshop included senior level personnel of government agencies, NGOs, and the private sector. The aim is to assist management teams of each department and agency with the knowledge and skills required to complete damage assessments and needs analyses reports following an emergency or impact from any hazard. There were 38 participants. We also have on island people from the University of the West Indies Seismic Network and Monitoring Unit, Mr. Lloyd Lynch and Mr. Ian Juman. They're currently here installing 2 seismometers and to restore the existing seismic sensor at the Nevis Disaster Management Department at Long Point. The locations for the new installations are at the Fountain Community Center and at Hamilton Estate, close to where the geothermal project is going to take place. A network of sensors is required to adequately monitor micro-earthquakes. And we thank UWI and the Seismic Center for their continued collaboration. The Nevis Disaster Management Department will join the rest of the world to commemorate the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction on the 13th of October. This year's theme, Empowering the Next Generation for a Resilient Future, will focus on the role of education in protecting and empowering our youths for a resilient future. We anticipate a number of activities for that commemoration on the 13th of October. Let me switch quickly to sports. I think the whole island, indeed the whole federation, was intrigued and fascinated by the idea of men's netball. We grew up knowing women playing netball, but apparently now it has crossed over and we now have men playing netball. While I did not get to attend any of the matches myself, I'm told that they were very well attended and the play and the audience were quite enthusiastic. The America's Netball Men's Championship would have been held in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, where we would have played host to 3 match days, including the final day and closing ceremony on Nevis. A total of 11 matches were played at the netball complex here in Nevis. We were able to host these international matches because of our significant investment in upgrades at that facility. It was a pleasure partnering with the local organizing committee in executing this championship. The Netball America's leadership has indicated that Nevis is well positioned to host more international games in the future. I want to pause there because, of course, this government has spent quite significant sums in upgrading and investing in our sporting facilities. We understand sometimes the cry, and truthfully, No matter how much we invest, there's always some other sporting discipline that is demanding that we also invest in them, and we recognize that. But the fact that we were able to host this international competition at our netball complex really was only possible because of our investment in upgrading those facilities. We have been systematically upgrading the sporting facilities all around the island, the Mondo track being our most significant single investment. The Department of Sports and Education will be launching the Nevis Rising Stars Netball Academy on September 28th. The academy has been introduced as part of the overall plan of reviving and developing netball here in Nevis. It is an important component of the Department of Sports' strategic plan for netball, with a target group being primary school girls. And in fact, in the cabinet, one cabinet member inquired, in light of the recent men's championship, should it also be extended to boys? And I'm told that that will be considered. The academy currently has 87 girls enrolled. 87 primary school girls will be enrolled. The Department of Sports drag racing unit will be hosting our Independence Drag Race meet this coming weekend, September 28th to 29th, at the St. James Raceway. This edition of the meet will see participating vehicles from the United States Virgin Islands, Antigua, St. Martin, and St. Kitts and Nevis, all of whom will be battling for supremacy. We, of course, encourage the general public to come out. Saturday would normally be the tune-up day, preliminaries, and the Sunday would be race day. And so we expect to see bumper crowds at the St. James Raceway. The Department of Youth's 2024 Youth Impact Award is scheduled to take place this evening at the Malcolm Guichard Park. I take this opportunity to congratulate the recipients of this year's awards. They would have demonstrated exceptionalism and excellence in the fields that they were nominated in and now being awarded for. Congratulations to Jazzy Connor, Patriotism; Yuta Taylor, Education and Lifelong Learning; Dijon Liebert, Volunteerism; Therese Daniel, Volunteerism; Davincia Bartlett, Entrepreneurship; Brighton Nisbet, Youth in Technology; Adrian Williams, Sports Excellence; Sienna Leader, Youth Development; and Joseph Williams, Youth in Arts. We encourage you, young people, to keep making positive contributions to the development of this island and the development of the Federation. Let me turn to the issue of school repairs and upgrades. Several schools were repaired and upgraded in time for the reopening of schools for this school year. The Charleston Secondary School, Nevis Sixth Form, work was done there, including repairs to the parapet wall at the Sixth Form, repairs to the roof at the Sixth Form, painting and tiling of bathrooms, repairs to the administrative offices, the gates, and the entrance to the Sixth Form. The St. James Primary School. Major repairs were conducted at the St. James Primary School, with most of the work being done on the hall. This follows major repairs to the roof on the infant block in 2023, on the school's kitchen between the end of 2023 and 2024, and repairs to the bathrooms during the Easter of 2024. The work on the hall is now complete, with the exception of the installation of the partitions in the hall. I want to take a moment just on the St. James Primary School, because I've seen a lot of mischief being made and efforts at mischief being made in relation to that school. I want the Nevision public to understand that the St. James Primary School is the smallest school in Nevis and potentially the smallest school in the entire Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. There have been points when that school has had no more than 26 students in the entire school. I want us to recognize that for that small number of students, we have to maintain an entire staff, principal, deputy principal, coach, kitchen, meals, and all that is required in relation to our other schools. And so when I hear the hubbub sometimes that is made about not enough being spent, I think that we need to appreciate the numbers. We need to appreciate that all the schools in Nevis require upgrades from time to time because of the wear and tear and the user. And in fact, sometimes because of vandalism that is experienced across the school system. And so I'm asking the people of St. James to be patient with us. to be patient with us, understanding that the level of investment that has been made thus far at the St. James Primary far outweighs the number of students. If you were to calculate it on the basis of per capita, how many students for the hundreds of thousands of dollars that has been spent, you realize that the investment in St. James's Primary has been significant. As I've indicated, and let me repeat, we have just finished extensive repairs on the hall. The only thing we're waiting for now is some partitions. But we did extensive repairs on the infant block in 2023. On the school's kitchen, they have a brand new kitchen with brand new appliances. That was done in 2024. And in Easter of 2024, we had the bathrooms also done. All this in a school with, currently I believe their role is less than 40 students. And so I'm saying that because I think sometimes when we hear a lot of the noise that is being made, we need to put things into perspective in terms of what is happening on the island and the demands on the public purse for investment to keep some of these institutions going, bearing in mind that the number of students that they serve is quite small. And so I want to put that out there. We have had numerous suggestions and recommendations made to us as a government that St. James Primary be amalgamated with the VOJN Primary, because that too is a very small school, so that we can get a much larger institution in the parish of St. James. Thus far, we have resisted those suggestions, but I wanted to put this in context for the people of Nevis so that they understand the amount of money that we have had to invest to keep the St. James Primary School afloat, keep it going. And I want to say to the head teacher there and her staff that they continue to have our support in relation to what needs to be done at that school. But the perspective, I think, is important, and the background is important. At the Charleston Preschool, we have done and are doing major repairs there. Those include the removal of the roof, the expansion of the restroom facilities, kitchen area and the supervisor's office. The well-needed repairs will allow for improved operations at that center. In the interim, so that we understand there's no disruption, the Charleston Preschool was relocated to the Albertha Payne Community Center in Bath, where operations have been going smoothly. The work is approximately 85% complete, and the school should be back to the refurbished space by the end of October. There were some minor repairs done to some other schools, including painting, repairs to bathrooms, tiling, and repairs to doors. The ministry appreciates that schools are in constant need of repairs due to the level of use of the facilities. As such, we try to respond to the needs on an ongoing basis and to prioritize major repairs in the future. I want to pause here to once again encourage parents, because it starts with the parents, that they encourage their children and those who are in their charge to treat school furniture and school equipment and school premises responsibly. We have had situations, ladies and gentlemen, where we have repaired toilets, put in place brand new facilities, and within less than a week, they have been destroyed. We have had people put rocks into the toilets. That is just willful, blatant vandalism. The same parents then turn around and attack the government and say we're not doing enough. Well, talk to your children. And ensure, I'm pretty sure that in your home, they're not putting rocks into your toilet at home. So why would they put a big stone in the toilets here? Why would they break off the toilet, break off the faucets, break the windows? That is a common situation that we're dealing with across our school network. And we need to talk about it, and I am seriously saying to my colleagues that when these things happen and we can identify who has done it, we need to hold the parents accountable for the repairs. We cannot continue to spend and spend and spend, and within sometimes a matter of days, what we have spent on has been destroyed. And then we hear everybody get to social media and start to cuss the government. Oh, you all have this toilet this way. You all have the bathroom in this condition. As if the Minister of Education went there and did something to the bathroom. We are spending, we are seeking to improve, but our people need also to be responsible. You all hear me with that word over and over. Our people need to be responsible, and parents need to say to their children, listen, take care of the furniture, take care of the fittings. You hear arguments sometimes, oh, there's not enough desks, there's not enough chairs. A lot of those desks and chairs are destroyed by the students. And I think that we need to say these things because we need our families to be more responsible and to say to the students that they have a duty to take care of the premises once these significant investments have been made. We started the new school year this September short of a few persons in education who were with us during the previous school year. Some persons have resigned or retired. Others have left to pursue teacher training at CFBC. 5 persons have gone to teacher training at We extend a profound thank you and appreciation to both of them for their sterling contribution to the development of education, and more specifically to our students here in Nevis. And we extend best wishes to them and to all others who have retired or moved on as they embark on their new journeys. I want to especially thank my friend Janice and my friend Jennifer because they really carried the weight there in my constituency, the Ivor Walters Primary and the Cicely Brown Integrated School for a very long time. And I applaud them for their effort, and I thank them for their effort. 9 teachers returned from CFBC, 2 returned from completing their bachelor's degree, and we hired 15 new teachers to complete the instructional staff in the Ministry of Education. Let me congratulate 2 young women. Miss Kristen Springett has been promoted to the post of principal at the Cicely Brown Integrated School, and Miss Serena Brown from Brownhill has been promoted to the post of principal at the Ivor Walters Primary School. We must congratulate both young women, and I want to emphasize young and women, because a lot of talk you get from governments about empowerment, empowering young people, gender equality, empowering women. We are not talking, we are doing it. And we're giving young people a chance. We're giving young people an opportunity. I heard a very unfortunate commentary from a former politician who apparently is a spokesperson for the opposition here on the island, lambasting young women because some of them had been elevated and given an opportunity. I think it is regrettable because we have to give our people a chance. We must invest in our people. We must give our young people an opportunity to lead. And that is what this government has tried to do. We have given them that opportunity. And I know that Ms. Springett and Ms. Brown are going to do well. They are motivated, they have what it takes, and I believe they're going to deliver for the benefit of the people of Nevis. Ms. Brown is from Brownhill. She would have gone to Ivor Walters. Her mother would have worked at Ivor Walters for a very long time. She is embedded in Brownhill, and Ivor Walters is the pride and joy of Brownhill. And so for us, it was a natural decision to get her there, to lead that institution, now that Mrs. Whitaker Richards has gone into retirement. And I'm really hopeful that the community and our people will support these young people. We can't continue to stress education, encourage our young people to go away to study. And when they come back with their degrees, we tell them, stay in the back of the bus, stay in the back of the line, and you must wait until you're 50 and 60 to get a position. We must invest in them. We must show them, whilst they still have the youth, the vim, vigor, and vitality, that this is their time. We keep saying, and I want to change the saying, that the youth are our future. And I keep saying, no, the youth are our present. The youth are our present. Of a global population of 8.2 billion, nigh 30% some 2.4 billion, are people below the age of 29. So what we must tell them, no opportunity for you? I am here today to say that this government is 100% committed to all of our people, but we are also committed to advancing our youth and placing women and youth in leadership positions in this island. I think the island can only be better for them. And when you look across the Ministry of Education, you look at the leadership, the permanent secretary is female. The principal education officer is female. And you look across the schools on Nevis, virtually all of them, I think with the exception of the Gingerland Secondary School, are females. And many of them are young people. We have invested in young people. St. Thomas's Primary School, a young woman. St. James Primary School, a young woman. Violet Jeffers, a young woman. Ivor Walters, a young woman. Cicely Brown, JLPS, EPPS. We have continued to demonstrate our commitment to elevate young people and to elevate women in our society. Why? Because they have a lot to offer. And that's what this government is about. The Brazil FAO International Cooperation Program is hosting a training program which forms an integral part of the Sustainable School Feeding Action Plan. Representatives from each primary school are currently enrolled in a 4-week training, bringing together around 50 technicians, managers, and decision makers from school feeding programs in St. Kitts and Nevis. The aim is to share knowledge, experience, and lessons learned in the field of school feeding with a view to implementing sustainable school methodology in the two islands in the future. I'm very proud of our school meals program. Of course, the program is administered differently in St. Kitts. I'm told in St. Kitts they create the meals in one location and then transport the meals to the schools. In Nevis, we have built kitchens at virtually every primary school on the island. And so every primary school on the island gets hot meals prepared right on site as part of our school meals program. And so I want to commend those who have been working in this program and to invite the press to take a look when they can at what we're doing in terms of providing nutritious meals to our youngsters in school. Let me switch to the Ministry of Health for some important updates. October, as we know, is recognized as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's a time dedicated to raising awareness about breast cancer, encouraging individuals to learn about risk factors, undergo regular screenings, and, of course, we must support those affected by the disease. The Ministry of Health urges women, in particular, to visit their healthcare providers, get screened, and take advantage of the affordable mammogram services available at Alexandra Hospital. The fee is just $200. Early detection can save lives, and we ask you to schedule your screening today. Now, I pause there because you will recall, members of the press, that for several months last year, we had free mammogram screening at the Alexandra Hospital. And we urged our women folk to go there and to get screened as part and parcel of our response to rising cases of breast cancer. Some took advantage of the opportunity. We did indicate that we would offer the service at a low price, but it will no longer be free after December of last year. And so that price is $200 EC. I want our women in particular to consider that to spend $200 EC to determine your status and to ensure that you are free of breast cancer, and if you have any indications of breast cancer, to be able to deal with it effectively and early. Early screening saves lives, and as we know, once we get hold of some of these diseases early, we can prevent deaths. And so I urge our women folk to take advantage. Of course, men can also get breast cancer. And so I urge our men folk as well to go and ensure that they're getting regular checkups. A lot of our men, because I suppose in our culture we're supposed to be macho men, we don't go to the doctor until it's unbearable. By then, it sometimes is too late. A lot of men in Nevis like to say they have gas pain. The head hurting them is gas. The foot hurting them is gas. The knee bothering them is gas. Everything is gas. I think that we need to take our health seriously. I continue to advocate for our people to engage in healthier lifestyles, to ensure that we exercise, to ensure that we eat properly, to ensure that we drink lots of water, we avoid excessive alcohol, we avoid smoking, and, of course, we avoid risky sexual behavior. These are all things that we can do that are within our control in order to ensure that we assist in keeping Nevis healthy. The Community Health Nursing Services, in collaboration with the Health Promotion Unit, will be hosting a Stop and Chat breast health session at Memorial Square on October 25th, starting at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So this is all part of our breast cancer awareness. We're having a Stop and Chat in the middle of town at the square. So stop by, have a chat with our knowledgeable team, and they will help you and give you information about your best breast health and practicing self-care. We also have been celebrating in the month of October this year's Mental Health Month. And that is being celebrated under the theme, It's Time to Prioritize Mental Health in the Workplace. The Behavioral Health and Wellness Center will host a week of engaging activities to raise awareness and promote mental health. We want all of you to join us in making mental health a priority. In St. Kitts and Nevis, sometimes we focus on our physical health and we ignore mental health issues. And that is why, for example, we have created spaces in Nevis now, like the Malcolm Guichard Park, where we are hoping people can go and relax, sit on a bench, read a book. We've done the same now at the Bath Stream, creating spaces where people can relax, distress, and really take charge of their mental health. We know that stress is a leading cause of mental health issues, and we urge our people to sometimes just take a deep breath and to relax. We also, of course, urge our families and our communities to be sensitive to those struggling with mental health issues. The old adage where we used to say people crazy, that is no longer acceptable. We need now to understand that people struggle. Some struggle from substance abuse issues, some struggle from various issues, but mental health is important for our overall physical health. Your body can be the most perfect body in the world. Cholesterol is right, blood pressure is right, blood glucose is right, no disease of the body. But if your mind is unstable, you still cannot lead a healthy life and make a contribution. So I encourage our people to take mental health seriously. The Ministry of Health and Social Empowerment, we are seeing some gains. And I want to spend a moment here because I am really proud of the work that this government has been doing. The Department of Social Services, through its Ministry of Health, Gender and Social Empowerment, is pleased to see gains that are being made in their thrust to empower clients through social assistance programs. One component of their RISE, Conditional Cash Transfer Program, you hear what I say? Conditional Cash Transfer Program, is assisting clients in their educational goals as a means of bettering themselves. The program in 2023 set a goal of helping our clients, predominantly female, who are heads of households, to work towards achieving a minimum of 5 CXC subjects. Through program assistance, the current batch of RISE clients should complete at least 2 to 3 subjects while on the program. The recently released 2024 CSEC results show that 10 of the 12 clients who sat CXC subjects were successful. A total of 25 CSEC general level, not basic, general level subjects have been attempted by clients on this program, and we had 18 passes. The RISE program also offers skill training, classes in money management, job search assistance, reading classes for children, among a wide array of other services for parents and children. The concept of empowering our clients to enhance self-sufficiency is an approach which is currently also being carried out through the federal LIFT program formerly known as PAP. Clients are encouraged to work with their case workers so they can take full benefit of the non-cash benefits of these programs. So you see in Nevis what we've said, we're going to do a cash transfer. We're going to assist the family, but it is conditional. To continue to access that assistance, you have to demonstrate that you're making strides to better your circumstances. And so we're offering you the opportunity through training, and in this case, the opportunity to sit exams offered by CXC. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the very definition of social safety nets and how they ought to work. That you're not just giving a man a fish, you're telling him that he must learn how to fish so that he can sustain himself. This is not about a handout. This is definitely about a hand up. That's what we're seeking to do, stretching a hand out to people and lifting them up. And that is what we're seeking to do here on the island of Nevis. And I'm so proud that 10 out of 12 who sat exams were successful, and of 25 subjects attempted at the general level. I want to keep emphasizing that. This is not basic CSEC, this is general. 18 were successful. And so I believe that that is worthy of commendation. Just quickly, youths across the island continue to benefit from the bike mechanics skill training classes. The Social Services Department's summer Earn a Bike class was conducted, the skills training and diversion site right here at Pinnes. According to organizers, there were 18 participants in the program, and they expressed great enthusiasm and enjoyment, highlighting the skills they gained in bike repair and the opportunity to benefit from bikes for their own recreational and transportation use. In addition to skills training, youth were engaged in awareness-raising sessions on road safety, health and wellness sessions, and protecting themselves during recent extreme heat waves. The Bikes Not Bombs LEAD program fosters environmental stewardship, economic development, and social empowerment through cycling and operates out of Boston, USA. I believe, if memory serves, that program would have actually predated this government. If memory serves, would have been started under the previous NRP-led administration. And so I thank them, but I also point out that where there are good programs, they ought to continue. And they ought to be, we ought to ensure that good programs continue. And the Bike Not Bombs program would have been invested in by us and continued to the point where in 2024, 18 youngsters are benefiting from it. We want to thank the police, disaster management, and the health officials who collaborated. We also had a job attachment for at-risk youth. Members of the press, I hope you're understanding where I'm going, because I'm pointing out the various things that we're doing. We talk about the fight against crime, the fight against antisocial behavior, the fight against deviant behavior. All of these are efforts that are being made at the local level here in Nevis. Job attachment for at-risk youth was held during the summer vacation, July 22nd and ending August 23rd. 9 children participated in job preparedness program, doing work internships at TDC Public Works, Craft House, LEFCO, Library Services, and the Government Craft House. 6 boys and 3 girls would have participated. This effort also benefits children of heads of households on social assistance programs and is held around the time of the main job attachment program hosted by the Department of Youth. So I want you to understand, members of the press, that we have a job attachment program that's done by the Department of Youth. This program is different. This program is done for youth that are identified as being at risk. So we have carved out a special program for those, and this year 9 youth benefited from that. Home ownership. All of us want to own a home. And all of us would like, at some point, to, as we say, turn our own key. But what we have realized is that not all of us understand the dynamics or are ready. And so the ministry has been hosting what they refer to as a home ownership seminar. This one will be held on September 26th and October 3rd. September 26th, that's today, and October 3rd. What these sessions try to do is provide a holistic educational experience on this topic of home ownership. Among topics to be explored are money management, homeowner insurance, how you obtain a mortgage, home management and maintenance, and owning your own home from start to finish, done by the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. In addition to the NHLDC, organizers have solicited experienced personnel from our local banks, insurance companies, etc., to share with the participants. So if you are interested in owning a home, or even if you already own a home, I suggest that you go and you participate. I had a conversation recently with a mature individual who said to me that they owned a home and they've been paying a mortgage for quite some time, but up to now they don't understand how the interest thing works, they don't understand how the mortgage thing works, they don't have any idea. We don't understand sometimes what it means to have equity that you've developed in your home. Can you borrow against that? If you've been paying for your home, your mortgage is 25 years, you've been paying for 15, your child who was 5 is now 20 and going off to university, can you go and refinance in order to get some money to ensure that you cover your child? These are all very important tools, very important information that our people should have. It is all part and parcel of financial literacy, and I'll get to that a bit later as well. The Department of Community Development, as part of the celebrations for the 41st anniversary of independence, the Department of Community Development held its second annual Unsung Hero Award ceremony on September 12th. And this was the brainchild of the people there at the Department of Community Development that is being ably led by the Honorable Janelle Nisbet. And that was designed to recognize people who would not normally be recognized, people who, as they say, are unsung. There are many people in our community who go out every day and contribute, but are not recognized for a variety of reasons. Maybe the job they're doing we don't think is important. But the Unsung Heroes Award is designed to recognize them. And so 5 well-deserving community members were recognized. In St. Paul's Parish, Mr. Michael Mills of Government Road, everybody knows Mikey Mills. He's involved in the music industry for a long time. In St. Thomas's Parish, Mrs. Jessica Scarborough of Cotton Ground, everybody knows Nurse Jessica. I call her the Queen because she's married to King this and that. The Unsung Hero of St. George's Parish, Mr. Roger Fifield of Zion's Village, everybody knows Roger. He's always contributing, quite a poet, songwriter, always involved in drama, not the bad kind. Drama is in terms of what happens at NEPAC, on the stage drama I'm talking about. Very, very good guy and involved in everything to do with Zion. Unsung Hero of St. James Parish, Mrs. Cordelia Brown of Butler's Village, widely known as a remarkable individual. She was a founding member of the Butlers Community Club. And the Unsung Hero of St. John's is none other than Mrs. Shakima Parry France, a devout Christian, ministry leader, Adventure Club member, and Adventures Club Island coordinator for Nevis. But what I know Shakima best for, and I don't even know why I'm saying Shakima, because everybody knows her as Wanda. But what we know Wanda best for is basketball. She's always involved with basketball, and she arranges each year the Malcolm Gishard basketball tournament that I have been proud to sponsor for the last 15 or so years. So thank you very much to the good people at Community Development. Ladies and gentlemen, just a few other small updates before I hand over to you for your questions. I wanted to update you on the drilling for water that has been happening here on the island of Nevis. Drilling had to be halted as Dr. Roland Skip Hogue, the hydrology expert, he had to travel back to the United States. As of Wednesday, September 18th, a depth of 320 feet had been drilled at the Madden's drill site. As indicated in previous reports, the project was initially saddled with several mechanical issues. The major mechanical issues have been resolved, but there were some technical issues that also developed and that we are trying to deal with. The major of these issues being the thick zone of unconsolidated material that has been encountered causing the wells to cave in. So that has created a problem as we drill, the well has caved in. Because of this zone, the amount of casing installed has more than doubled. And at 320 feet, it is too difficult to install additional casing without reducing the size of the casing. So what we're doing now is pouring concrete down the borehole to stabilize the areas that are caving in. The process is a tedious process because the concrete then needs up to 36 hours to cure. The drill stems are being removed, camera inserted to observe the effectiveness of the process, and these steps usually have to be repeated a number of times. This is not unusual for the area, I'm told, as a report from the neighboring well, also in Maddens, which was drilled in 2008, shows similar challenges. Casings and slotted pipes were installed in that well beyond 500 feet. Meanwhile, 3 other sites, namely Maddens, again, Braziers, and Descents, those sites are being prepared now for drilling to commence there shortly. The drillers will recommence drilling on October 2nd or 3rd, when we expect to hit bedrock at the Maddens well, and thereafter we expect to go down to about 500 feet. So that process is ongoing. Still on the issue of water, I just want to say that the desalination plant that is being constructed, the small desal plant, the civil works will end in October, that is next month. We will have everything installed. The equipment is already here, but the experts are coming in to hook up everything, and that should be done in November, and we should be commissioning that desalination plant before the end of this year. And so we say thank you again to the government of the United Arab Emirates for that gift, one to Nevis and one to St. Kitts. I've been asked to inform the general public that the Nevis leg of the National Consultations on Crime will be held at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park on Friday the 4th of October from 9 p.m. So that's next Friday at 9 a.m., 9 a.m. We'll have the consultation on crime. That is an ongoing national initiative launched by the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. We're inviting the entire Nivision public to come out and share their views. So that's next Friday, the 4th of October at 9 a.m. at the Malcolm Guichard Park. Now, I mentioned earlier about the efforts at educating our people in relation to their financing, asking our people to be more responsible. It has been a topic that I have engaged on more than once, because I feel that some of our people behave irresponsibly with the money that they have available to them. And having spent their money on their wants, they are then prone to attack people for saying that their needs are not being satisfied. I think that if you are out there and you prefer to spend your money on hair, nails, shoes, at the rum shop or at the houses of ill repute, rather than buying food and paying your child support, then you are the problem, not the country and not the government. And I think that it is time that we have an honest and frank conversation with our people, that we cannot continue to squander whatever little we have and then blame someone else and say things hard and things bad. Because a lot of people who are claiming things hard and things bad, when you say to them, well, let us look at how you deal with your finances, you realize that those people are choosing to spend on their wants and ignoring their needs. And so financial literacy, allowing our people to understand the dynamics of how money works and how they can build wealth and transfer wealth from one generation to the next. All of these are important. The government cannot completely exonerate itself. And I'm the leader of government in Nevis, because there have been some government policies and actions which, in my humble opinion, have actually exacerbated the problem. And I'll give you an example. Some years ago, somewhere around 2007, 2008, the then government in Nevis, the NRP, built an entire housing development called Cherry Gardens. It is a beautiful housing development. It is the largest single housing development that we had seen up to that time. The model that they used was to build the houses by the NHLDC and then allocate the houses to people after they were built. And those people were then asked to pay monthly to the corporation, some instances being asked to pay over 25 or 30 years. $600, $800, $1,000 a month. Many of our people rushed into those houses, and many of them started to boast, I now have a home. Well, they did have a home in the sense that they lived there, but they had no title to that property. The titles to all of those properties in Cherry Gardens remained with the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. And so people were paying monthly, those that were diligent, but they were paying monthly almost as if it was a rent-to-own type of situation, because they would not get title until the 30th year after they've paid off. So just imagine if you got one of those homes and you were 30 years old. You would be 60 years old before you got your title. Now, why do I raise that? Because sometimes we feel good that it is a short-term benefit. I get a house, I have my keys. But there's no long-term benefit because you don't have your title. It means, therefore, that you're not getting the benefit of any equity. You can't go and say, let me borrow against this property. You can't even, in some cases, insure the property, because the insurance company is going to ask you, where's your title for the property? And so when we got into government in 2013, we set about trying to rectify that. And we are continuing to do so, because some of that has still persisted to this day. So we are continuing to try to rectify that and to say to homeowners, let us find a way. So we are working with Social Security, we are working with NHLDC, we are working with the credit union, we are working with the various institutions to get people's title into their hands. Now, why is that important in the context of what I'm talking about in terms of financial resilience and financial education? Is that our people need to understand that if you're simply in a house, you may feel that you're benefiting because you're paying $600, $800 a month and you have access to the keys. But at the end of the day, if God forbid you were to die tomorrow, what is there for your children to inherit? The answer, nothing, because you don't own anything. You are simply an occupier, as in the case of somebody who's paying rent. And so we need to start to have these types of conversations with our people, so that our people understand that when they go into home ownership, they acquire their title, and over time, they develop equity in their home. They have an asset that is theirs. They can leave it by will, they can sell it, they can mortgage it, and if something were to happen to them, their children have something that they can inherit. That's important as we talk about generational wealth. And we have a lot of people across St. Kitts and Nevis who are in that position. Because I'm told, and Mr. Bart, you're here, you might be able to correct me, that the model in St. Kitts is a Cherry Garden model. That is the NHS in St. Kitts. NHCS? NHC in St. Kitts builds the homes and then allocate the homes to people who then pay monthly. That requires a huge capital commitment from the corporation upfront, and then the hope that over time. And we know, let us be candid, that some people, once they're put in a house, they say, I support the party put me here and me now pay. So you also have a high degree of default in those situations. So for me, it is not a sustainable model. And it is one of the ways, in my humble opinion, where policy can work to keep people poor. And we must have policy that lifts people up. Not give them today a good feeling, but in reality over the long term, they have nothing. I remember a situation that broke my heart in Cherry Gardens, where a single mother was paying for one of those homes monthly to the corporation and tragically died. And the children were left with nothing. And it took the government's intervention to work something out with the children, to say, well, you can continue in the house and continue to pay. But there was no legal obligation on the part of the corporation. They could have just sold that house to somebody else or given somebody else the house. That has to change. And government must, as I said, be in a position to have the real conversations with our people as to how they can truly be empowered. Not just get a key. I remember the campaign very well. The NRP said, shake your key. And we said, shake your title. Because at the end of the day, the key don't mean a thing. If you change the locks, the key is no good. But having your title is what matters in relation to property. And so it brings me to my constant cry that our people need to be more responsible in terms of their finances. Now, I don't want to be misconstrued. I don't want anybody to say that I am insensitive to the plight of people who are genuinely struggling, because we do have people who are genuinely struggling. But I also feel that some of our people can do better. We have a habit now, it seems, that if our pay is $3,000 a month, we find a way to spend 4 or 5. If our pay is $5,000 a month, we find a way to spend 7. And that every penny that some people make is already assigned. And so you're on the margins. And if you lose your job or you get sick, you immediately drop off the cliff and fall into poverty because you're not making any provisions for that rainy day. The Bible tells us about the times of plenty. Was it in Egypt where they had the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine? And what was the Bible admonition? Store up your grain, so when the famine comes, you have an opportunity. Too many of our people do not have a plan. They're not working towards a plan. They go to work every day. And whatever money they make, they spend. And people say to me sometimes, oh, cost of living is high, so we can't save. And I said, I know where I come from. A place called Scarborough and a place called Hanley's Road. And the level of poverty, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back, that existed then, doesn't exist anymore in Nevis. What I mean by that is that everybody was poor. Everybody, Tut Mun Saman Bagay. Everybody went to school barefoot. Everybody had the same struggles. Not getting 3 square meals a day. All of us were in that position. And still somehow, with no employment, there was no 4 seasons, there was no payday for many people. Still somehow, that old granny and that old great aunt find some way to save a little something. And I believe people who are listening know exactly what I'm talking about. Whatever they got, they pinch a piece of it and they save something. Nowadays, people earning $5,000 a month and tell you they can't save a penny because things are hard. And things are hard in part because they have an account at Coates, they have an account at Hosford, they have an account at TDC, they're taking money from, what you call it, fast cash, right? They have a credit card, because you see the credit cards, you know, even that requires education. A lot of our people don't understand that a credit card is actually borrowing. That's what you're doing, you know. Every time you use your credit card, you borrow money. Except that when you go to the bank and the bank charging you 5% on a usual loan on the credit card is 22, 23, 24% that you're paying. So some people are saying, oh, I could just make the minimum payment. Run up my credit card, $5,000 in debt on my card, and I'll just make the minimum payment. But every month, 20-something% is being calculated and going onto that card. And so our people need to be responsible. I tell people all the time, do not use a credit card unless you have the ability to pay it off at the end of the month. It is a convenient tool, but let it be your last tool. Because once you pull that credit card, you must tell yourself, I'm going to pay this, but at the end of the month, I'm going to pay off my credit card. If your credit card is part of your day-to-day expenditure, and you're using your credit card as part of your income, you're running yourself into trouble. Because over time, that debt is going to mushroom on you, and you're going to have problems. So these are all things. I'm not saying that people are necessarily willful. Sometimes it's just that people don't understand. And some of our people love to say, give me a loan, give me a... Oh, I see them advertising loans on the banks, and I'm going to say to the banks, they need to do better too, you know. because they too need to assist in educating people. Because a lot of the banks, so they tell you carnival loan, Culturama loan, $10,000, go buy your costume. And people rush in because they say, oh, money, 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 they rush in. And then they get themselves into problems. The financing houses, they tell you, oh, come take the TV, $29 a week. You say, oh man, that's easy. But then when you can't meet that and you don't ask them what the interest is, the higher purchase interest, sometimes it is high, 18% sometimes. When you can't meet that, you know what they do? They come and they take back the TV, and you still owe them. Our people need the education, and us who are in a position of leadership need to speak candidly with our people. Because everybody comes now to me and tell me how hard things are. I say, let's have a discussion about what you do with your money. Because sometimes by making adjustments here and there, you could start to put aside a little something. And so this brings me to this program that the federal government has launched. It's called Aspire, A-S-P-I-E-R. I'm told it means achieving success with personal investment, resources, and education. When I first heard this program announced by the Honorable Prime Minister in the Parliament, the budget debates of 2023, in my mind I thought, I'm not so sure that that program is viable. I don't know how you can implement. Yesterday, we had Dr. Marcus Natter, the Cabinet Secretary to the federal government, who came over to brief the Cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration as to where we are thus far. We also have representation from the NIA and the person of Janisha Daniel, who's on the task force to implement this program. And when I heard the rollout and the explanation, it's as if the blinders, the blinkers fell from my eyes, and I recognized that this program, if properly implemented, can indeed be of tremendous benefit to St. Kitts and Nevis. The reason why I say that, because the program is intended to be a financial education and savings program for St. Kitts and Nevis for youngsters between the ages of 5 and 18. Now, the idea behind the program, as I understand it, and as has been explained now to us by the Cabinet Secretary in St. Kitts, is that we need to hold our people from a young age and start teaching them financial literacy and financial responsibility. And so the federal government, and I'm told that the cohort at the start is between 10 and 11,000 youngsters who fit into that 5 to 18 category. So the initial start is that they're going to allocate 500 EC dollars to a savings account. So if you're 5 years old, you're Mark Brantley Jr., 5, you're going to get $500 into an account at the National Bank. I have asked the Cabinet Secretary to convey to the federal cabinet that I would also wish them to include the Bank of Nevis in that initiative, as the Bank of Nevis also has significant ownership from the public sector. Government, NIA, and Social Security are significant shareholders at the Bank of Nevis. But currently, they're considering setting up these accounts at National Bank. $500 goes into Mark Brantley Jr.'s account. He's 5 years old in kindergarten. And he gets $500 worth of shares. At this point, I'm told they're considering the cable, which is almost 100% owned by government, and they're considering National Bank as well. So this youngster gets $500 in cash, well, in a savings account, $500 shares. And that is put into what I would call a lockbox. So I want the parents especially to listen. Don't bother think you can go on little Johnny account and take off the money. That's not how it's intended to work. That money is put there, and that money is in a lockbox. You can add to it, but you cannot withdraw it until the period of maturation arrives, period of maturity arrives. So in the case of most children, if they get to the age of 18, then they can deal with the resources then. But I want you to consider, members of the press and members of the public, if you have $1,000, 500 in savings, and 500 in shares. And the accumulation of that, if you got it at 5 years old, by the time you reach the age 18, if you've added a little something to it, if the shares have got a dividend and that dividend has been added, the interest that you earn on the $500, you realize that at 18, you now have a little something that is your own. And if that can be coupled with the right education, and so I'm very happy that Janisha Daniel from Nevis, she is involved with the education aspect of this. And they're developing curricula for the schools, the primary schools and the high schools, in order to pass on to our students the principles of money management, wealth creation, how money works. I think this can be transformative for St. Kitts and Nevis. If done right, nobody else, as far as I'm aware, in the region has done it. It can really create the next generation of our people who are really experts in terms of money and money management. And that is going to be critical if we are to build wealth in our nation, if we are to create wealth, keep wealth, generate wealth, and transfer wealth to the next generation. So, let me just tell you what I'm told the rules are. Who is eligible? Not everybody is going to be eligible. So, please, if you are paying attention, the people who are eligible are those who are between the ages of 5 and 18. They must be a St. Kitts and Nevis citizen. They must be a citizen by birth or by descent. That means they must be born here, or their parents or grandparents must be born here. They must live here. So they must live in St. Kitts and Nevis. They must be enrolled in school or registered for homeschooling in St. Kitts and Nevis. So put differently, if you are between 5 and 18 and you're born here and have citizenship, but you're living in St. Martin or you're living in New York, you are not eligible. If you are resident here and you are a citizen because of that, but you were not born here and your parents or grandparents were not born here, then you're not eligible. If you're a resident here, but you're not a citizen, then you're not eligible. So it is very specific as to who it's trying to reach. Kittitians and Nevisians, citizens between the ages of 5 and 18, who are resident in St. Kitts and Nevis, and who are enrolled in school or homeschooling in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I don't want you, if you're sitting down in Toronto right now, start to jump up and say, my 3 children are going to get $1,000 because they're born in St. Kitts. That's not the way it's intended to work. So these are the rules that the Cabinet in St. Kitts has put in place. And they say that the participants must remain in the program for a minimum of 5 years or until they turn 18. Indeed, the Cabinet Secretary shared with us yesterday that the Prime Minister has said that if you were 18 at the time when he made the announcement in December of 2023, and you have since turned 19, that you will also benefit from the program. So he's taking it back there. I'm inviting persons to go to www.aspire.gov.kn www.aspire.gov.kn for more information and to sign up. All the parents in Nevis, I'm appealing to you. If you have your children between 5 and 18 that satisfy the criteria, go on to the website and sign up your children. Dr. Natta disclosed yesterday to us that they've already had just over 1,000 applications, of which he indicated about 200 would have come from Nevis. What do you need to apply? You need your birth certificate, or you need a valid certificate of citizenship. Your parent or guardian must have a valid photo ID, and that could be a social security card, a driver's license, passport. I would imagine that your voter ID would also work. You need proof of residential address, because remember, you have to be resident in the Federation. And your parent or guardian must have an email address that they share for purposes of future correspondence. I wanted, ladies and gentlemen, to share that because I think that that Aspire program, like Social Security, like our policy of mandatory secondary education, all of those are programs like our Citizenship by Investment program, which are revolutionary and which can be transformative for our society. And so I urge the parents here in Nevis to have their children signed up for this program. And I wish this program success, particularly in relation to education, because I believe some of the mistakes that have been made, even by adults, could be avoided if they had the proper training. Could you imagine your 7, 8-year-old, your 10-year-old, your 12-year-old coming home and saying to you, "Mommy, are you doing some budgeting? Are you sure that you're budgeting so that we can save a little something, we can invest a little something? Daddy, are you sure that you need to buy that car this year? Can't you delay it and do this instead?" Could you imagine that may come from your teenage child guiding you? And so one of the things we discussed yesterday was also that as part of the training, we would like to see the adults, the parents themselves exposed to some training as well, so that they and their children together could have these types of meaningful discussions about wealth, wealth creation, and how we ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis becomes a more prosperous country. If you spend all your time, ladies and gentlemen, focused on consumption, you will forever be in a bad situation. Some consumption can be delayed or deferred until you're in the right space. I told a friend recently who got a 2-bedroom house, one person living in the house. I said, "Why you have to furnish all the rooms at once? Furnish the room that you're living in. And as you go, you add." "No, I want everything furnished one time." So they go and they incur debt at Hosford, debt at TDC, debt at courts, because they want everything one time. When month end comes, this got to go there, that got to go there, you have nothing left. Sometimes take your time. We have a tendency to watch people and watch what people have. We like to say, "Oh, he got a good car, so me want one too." There's nothing wrong with ambition. But sometimes ask yourself how he got that good car. How did she get at home? It did not happen overnight. Unless you win the lotto, the only way to success is through a plan and through hard work. And our people need to start to hear these truths, because somewhere along the line we lost our way. Our forebears, as poor as they were, understood that there was a benefit in putting a little penny aside for a rainy day. Our people today are not concerned about that. And as I say, if you live your life a particular way, all you need is a little hiccup, a bit of sickness, which is there for all of us, the loss of your job, or even a layoff, and you run yourself into big problems because you have not set out and structured your financing in a sensible way. So I definitely welcome that program. I believe that it is an excellent idea, and I hope that it will meet with success. I think it can be absolutely revolutionary for this country if we can inculcate in our children the principles of good money management and ensure that they understand and are literate in relation to financial matters. I now open the floor for any questions that you may have and invite your questions accordingly.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. LK Gwinnett, Department of Information. I'll choose my words very carefully here because I don't want the AG to send the police for me. With respect to the Federal Minister of Government that recently came under attack on social media, casting aspersions on her character, that prompted an impassioned philippic from the Attorney General against that kind of activity. Some are in agreement with his response. Others have described it as somewhat hypocritical, since most of the political parties, politicians, and party supporters over time have solicited and or knowingly fueled the malicious attacks on other politicians, journalists, and other individuals in our society. What is your take on that matter? Has the NIA started budget estimates meetings, and what is the government's focus for the 2025 budget? Has there been any progress on the fair share negotiations, and is there any concern that by the time an agreement is arrived at, there will be little or nothing to share? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hewlett. I know you to be a responsible woman and a responsible journalist, so I don't think you ought to have any fear from the Attorney General. The comments, as I understand them, and I regret now that I was not in the Parliament at the time to hear them for myself. I did go to Parliament that day, but I had a commitment in Nevis, and so I had to come back to Nevis prior to the AG speaking. I have since seen some clips of what the AG would have said, and it is not for me to defend the Honorable Attorney General. He's a learned man, and he ought to know what language he should employ in making the arguments that he seeks to make. What I will say, however, is that his language aside, and it was flamboyant, some may argue it was perhaps extreme, but the language aside, the principle that the Attorney General spoke to is one that I agree with. We have these devices called cell phones, and sometimes I feel that we need to have some classes to educate our people about them. We use these instruments, and many of us find creative ways to use them to make mischief. And so we now have all avenues available to us. Free. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X as they're now called, TikTok, and WhatsApp, all kinds of media available to us. And I confess, as somebody in public life myself, Ms. Hewlett, I wake up some mornings and I ask myself, fellas that sit down and dream these things, how they come up with certain things that they say. Breaking news. That's the latest thing that catches the eye. You all are media professionals. You know, when you say breaking news, everybody wants to know, what is the breaking news? And it is absolute rubbish. I saw a breaking news story the other day that CXC results have not come back because no money has been paid to CXC. Nothing goes so. And there is no responsibility. There is no retraction and said, oh, I got it wrong. They just move on to the next lie. That's all that happens. So CXC now puts out a statement saying no money is owed to us. And you don't get any retraction. You just get them say, well, let's move on to the next story. The next breaking news. And our people are being lulled into a situation where they respond and react. So when you hear your child did not get CXC results because the government failed to pay, well, obviously you're going to get vexed. And you start to respond. The only problem is it's a lie. It is not true. And this is where I am saying, members of the media, that we have media, people who I think are responsible, and try to get out the story and all sides to the story. And then you have some who are masquerading as media, who are really propagandists, wolves attired as sheep, who are putting things out there for one reason only, is to create mischief. And the frequency of it happening is such that we get to a point where sometimes people don't know what is true and what is false. I had a call on my call-in show last night, and the caller said that he's concerned about CXC results. He said, I'm hearing a lot of things. I hear that the government didn't pay the money to CXC that they owe. And then CXC say the government doesn't owe them any money. I don't know who to believe. I don't know what to believe. So what does that tell me? It tells me that the breaking news done got he. He done imbibe the breaking news that money is owed to CXC. So up to when CXC puts out a formal statement to say no money is owed, he said he don't know what to believe. That is where we are in the country. So we are using social media for the most malicious purposes. And I am here to say today that unless we check ourselves, and unless our society starts to understand the destructive power of some of the things that we're doing, it's going to get worse. We have a situation, ladies and gentlemen of the press, where AI, artificial intelligence, is allowing all kinds of fake things to be made to appear real. I got a message on my phone just a few days ago, and the message purported to be none other than Donald Trump, former president of the United States. And I said, why Donald Trump? And he referred to me as Mark, you know. And he's looking forward to working with Nevis when he's elected. Only one thing, he wants a donation of some $300,000 to his campaign. Now, if I was so stupid to put my jacket on and say, boy, Donald Trump is in touch with me, and $300,000 he wants, and let us help him, because when he gets into the White House, they will then send me now some account and they will rip me off. That is what social media is coming to. I, as you know, own a law firm, Daniel Brantley, and every day they get messages, emails that are intended to defraud the law firm, defraud clients. Every day they're having to deal with it. So we have our people out there who, many of them are getting into this thing. In Jamaica, you have this whole scamming. What they call it, chopper? Call them choppers. They scam people using credit cards, but the same tools, your phone and the internet, to scam people. And we have to draw the line. And I believe that that is what the Attorney General was seeking to do, if I understand the clips that I heard. As I said, his language was perhaps flamboyant, but he was trying to draw the line, because all of us saw and heard the various voice notes and comments that were being sent out. And in an environment that is already difficult in terms of security and personal safety, you cannot be putting things out there that can potentially put people at risk. We don't know who is hearing this and who might be influenced by what they hear to say, in an environment where gun violence is prevalent and where guns seem to be easily accessible to some, that they will take it upon themselves to go and do harm to somebody. And we're passing these things around like how you pass around candy at Christmas. I get it, oh me arm, and I send it out to the next chat. I send it to as many people as I can. And these things go viral. You all think when Kiana Warner won the Caribbean Youth Congress that it went viral? People say, oh, that's nice. People don't bother forward that. But when you hear a voice note and say, oh, here Mr. Wakely Daniels, oh man, that is manna from heaven. And we send it around. And by the time the truth comes out, people out there done persuaded that that is the case. And I just feel that the principle that was being expressed, that as a people we needed to be responsible, we need not share information that is damaging, that is inciting violence, that is seeking to destroy other people, and it comes to our phones, delete it. A lot of people get these things to their phones, where people send lewd or nude photos and various sexual content to people's phones. And they say, oh, me, I'm this girl from Redonda. And so they start to send it around. And I believe what the Attorney General was trying to say is that those things are actually illegal. I wonder if people understand that they commit a crime when they forward these types of things. I wonder if they understand that. Because these phones, we just do it. Many of us don't even think about it. It's the latest gossip, it's the latest news. And we have some bloggers and so-called influencers. That's what they focus on, melee and confusion. They do it for the likes. They do it for the likes. So they post anytime you have confusion of any nature, be assured that you can go on some pages and some blogs and you will find it there. Who man boss, who man head, who cheating on who caught in what scandal, whether it is true or not. We are not using social media to uplift each other, to share ideas, to have a conversation that is meaningful. We are using it to destroy, to encourage retaliation against some people. Those voice notes that were going around, in my humble opinion, could have escalated into a situation of violence against the person they were targeted at. And it is not just because that person happens to be a minister of government. Whoever, because it could be you or I tomorrow. And we have to appreciate that when we put this out there, that, oh, this has happened because so and so, we are creating an environment where we're inviting violence, we're inviting problems for people. And I am prepared to wager that 9 times out of 10, it is just like the breaking news about money owed to CXC, not a thing or so. So I think that's what the AG was trying to say. If I was there, I would have reached across the island, pull his jacket and tell him, you know, take it easy, don't be so flamboyant. But, as I said, he has his own style, and he would have been presenting. But I think that there are some mischievous people out there who are trying to say that it's an attack on freedom of speech. There's no attack on freedom of speech, but our people need to understand that freedom of speech doesn't mean that it's free, no? If all speech was free, we wouldn't have the law of defamation. And all of us understand that sometimes people have to pay for their mouth. But what do you think that means? We have to be careful what we say, what we engage with. And this thing of taking to social media to say everything. And the least educated opinions seem to be the ones that make their way to social media. People who, if you open the dictionary and you look for the definition of stupid, you see a picture of them. Them are the ones talking the most on social media. It's painful. They've not got no experience in nothing. But on social media, there are PhDs in everything. And so you have sometimes to just encourage our people again and tell people, listen, be responsible. I keep coming back to that word because that is the word. Budget estimates have already started the preliminary discussion, Ms. Hewlett. What we're going to be focused on in the coming year, I think I'm saying economy. We need to continue to grow the economy of Nevis, and at the same time see how we can better manage our commitments, including our debt commitments and our public service commitments. So we'll be looking at those, but that process has already started. I don't yet have a theme, but the good folks at Finance have already started that. Fair share negotiation, you say, if anything going to be left. I think that's an interesting question, and I believe that the question perhaps misconstrues what we mean in Nevis when we say fair share. The fair share debate came out of the CBI revenue flows and the fact that Nevis, over the period that we have had citizenship by investment, the last analysis that we saw done, Nevis had received less than 11% of the inflows. It means that almost 90% of those inflows have stayed on Sinkits. So that was the start of the debate. But I don't want the people of Nevis or the people of the Federation to think that CBI is the only aspect to this debate, because it is not. We have a situation, for example, where we have a single customs space. Just trying this as an example. Do the members of the press understand that the phenomenon now that we have of everybody ordering online? So we have everything coming into the country because of these online orders. And we have some companies that have sprung up, West Tech, E-Zone, number of them. Jack, what do they call Jack? Something, Carib Jack. Number of companies have sprung up as a result. But because of the single customs situation, when a Amerijet lands on St. Kitts at RLB, and those goods come in, remember, those goods would be for Nevis and St. Kitts, because you have people in Nevis who are ordering goods as well. It's one customs union, and so you pay your customs duties there in St. Kitts. Let us say that there are 40% of those goods that are destined for Nevis, that is buyers in Nevis. The NIA doesn't collect that because the goods landed in St. Kitts, and so customs is levied in St. Kitts. You have a situation where you have companies that are operating in both St. Kitts and in Nevis. Flow, Digicel, other companies. But they're filing their corporate returns, tax returns, on St. Kitts. And so St. Kitts collects 100% of the tax that is paid by those companies on their profits, even if a substantial portion of that profit was earned in Nevis. The NIA doesn't get any of that. You have a situation where there's a single filing system for VAT. What that means is that if you are the National Bank, if you are Flow, if you are Digicel, if you are any of these big companies, any VAT that you're paying on services offered across the Federation, you file on Bastille, you pay your VAT in Bastille. Nevis gets none of that in terms of what portion of that was generated in Nevis. So I say these things, and I can go on and on with other examples to say that when we're talking about fair share, we're talking about an overall analysis of the financial arrangements between these two islands. Somebody asked me the other day, what is the GDP of Nevis? And I can't answer. I can't give an accurate statement because there is so much leakage out of the Nevis economy. So customs, corporate taxes, VAT, that even though we here on the ground are seeing and feeling the economic expansion that's happening on the island, the government revenue is not rising by the level or to the degree that it should, because a lot of that is just being siphoned off, if you will, for want of better language. And so we need a system that takes all of that into account. Now, I know that some listening may say, well, the Constitution provides a mechanism where it talks about an 80-20 split. But that constitutional mechanism, for whatever reason, has not been put in place and has not been in practice for some time. So we are saying, and even if it requires a constitutional amendment, so be it. But we are saying that it comes to a point when these issues need to be addressed. So, Ms. Hewlett, I don't want it to be said that it's just a CBI argument, because we understand that CBI has been on the decline and that the number of applications are less than. We continue to get what we have been getting, which is $5.5 million per month directly from CBI. But we are saying that there are a number of other fiscal matters that need to be addressed. Having said that, one of the reasons why I highlighted the Aspire program this morning and invited our parents to ensure that their children are part of that program, Ms. Hewlett, is because that is an example, in my view, of the fair share that Nevis has been advocating for. That program is a national program. It is being funded, as far as I gather, from the Citizenship by Investment program, and every child in Nevis that qualifies is entitled to be a part of that. And I want to give the credit to the Dr. Juliet administration, because when they rolled out programs such as Aspire, they have ensured that Nevis, you hear what I said? The cabinet secretary from St. Kitts came to brief us yesterday. And information I read out to you was information that he provided to our cabinet just yesterday. So it is quite clear that the message is getting through, that all the people, ALL, all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis must be able to share in the fruits of this country. And the days when the people of Nevis were being told, you must stay in the back of the bus and nothing for you, that those days, we hope, are over. So fair share, Ms. Hewlett, is about fair opportunity. It's about getting and ensuring that the people of Nevis can benefit from programs that are being funded through entities like the Citizenship by Investment, and it is to ensure that we get our fair share of what's due to us. Now, I want to be clear, because I always try to make the point to my Kittitian friends, that I am not asking for 1 penny of taxpayer money that is generated in St. Kitts. St. Kitts, if your economy is growing and your taxes as a consequence are growing, God bless you. May it continue. Mark Brantley and the NIA is not interested in a penny of that. What we're interested in is knowing that taxes that are generated from activity on the island of Nevis ought properly to come to the island of Nevis, because we have things to do in Nevis. We have debt to pay. We have teachers to pay. We have a hospital to finish. We have things to do in Nevis. And that is what we have been agitating about. The fair share issue then is a much wider issue for Nevis than simply citizenship by investment. That's important because that has led to a lot of revenue coming into the country, but it's not just that. We also need opportunity. We need to see when national bodies are set up that Nevisions can lend their expertise to those bodies. National Bank Board, Development Bank Board, national institutions, Social Security Board should have representation from Nevis. Our diplomatic corps should have diplomats from Nevis. These are the things that we have been saying. Because if you don't point out some of these things, the same old will apply. And so we're making good progress. In that regard, Ms. Hewlett, we don't yet have a formula that we've agreed, but I do believe that significant progress has been made and continues to be made in relation to that, and the Aspire program is one example of a fair share for Nevis, because every child in Nevis who is eligible is entitled to that program. Anything further for me?
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Shamika Budgeon, Vaughan Radio. You basically mentioned CXC, so let me start with that. Now, in receiving the press release from CXC, and yes, the government is not owing. However, I think the issue is that some students have not yet received their results. Some came back ungraded. So can we get an update as to when these students can or will receive their remaining grades? Is there a time frame? Also, when can the public expect the resumption of work for the hospital's wing? Can we get an update on the airport's expansion? And we are almost at the high peak season for guest arrivals. How is it looking for Nevis when it comes to tourist arrivals? Let's say from now until February. That's it for me for now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Budgeon. I used to think your colleague, Ms. Thompson, asks hard questions, but it looks like you are asking even harder questions than her. CXC. I can only share with you what has been shared with me, because I have no direct responsibility in relation to CXC. I think that, as I've been advised, CXC and the way it functions, there's a registrar for St. Kitts and Nevis who's based in St. Kitts, who's the point of contact with CXC and the Federation. And as I gather, what tends to happen is that the information is disseminated through that registrar. The CXC release confirms that no monies are owing to CXC. So that breaking news was basically false. But you are correct that some students, and I'm told, especially in the technical subjects, that they came back ungraded. And I too was concerned as to why, because my view is the children have worked hard, they need their results. Some of them are going on to college or going on to other jobs, they want their results. And the explanation that I've got is this, that there is no issue in relation to money, or certainly in relation to Nevis, the education officials not doing what they were supposed to do. So the subjects affected, I'm told, in some cases have to do with those students who are doing what they call SBAs. And that the information would have gone from Nevis to the registrar in St. Kitts for the usual onward submission, and that I'm told, as of yesterday, that there was some miscommunication insofar as the registrar's office and CXC were concerned. That whatever information was transmitted, there was apparently some queries from CXC which did not get to the attention of the registrar because of some miscommunication. And so CXC is claiming they did not have all that they needed, and the registrar apparently was not aware at the time that CXC had sought some additional information. I'm told that now that the results, some have come back ungraded, that process has now been engaged. And I can only say what the Minister of Education in Nevis, the Honorable Troy Liebert, has reported to the Cabinet yesterday, that he claims that he has had discussions with the Federal Minister of Education, Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, and that we ought to be seeing some results as quickly as next week coming in for some of those subject areas that have not yet been graded. So, from what I'm being told, there appears that there was some breakdown in communication as between CXC and the registrar's office in St. Kitts. And that is what has led to the snafu. But that apparently has now been corrected. And so we anticipate that we'll be able to get results in short order. So I can only, as I say, report what has been reported to me. The hospital wing, we had made a commitment that we would restart the hospital wing in May, I think it was, of this year, because we had finally got what we had been waiting for a very long time. However, the government did take a look at the fact that we were celebrating our 50 years of Culturama and our homecoming celebration. And we decided that we needed to upgrade our various facilities for that purpose. And so we delayed the recommencement of the work at the hospital. I cannot today give you a date when we will restart, but what I can tell you is that a discussion has already started in terms of how we go about completing that project. That project, I can tell you, Ms. Budgeon, will be the most important infrastructural project for the government in the coming budget session. There is no ifs, ands, buts, or maybes about it. We have to complete that project, and that is our commitment to the people of Nevis, that we will get it done. In terms of the airport expansion, I believe that the design work is now complete. I am told by the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, who's leading that effort, that the submissions to the planning department should have occurred this week. In fact, I was told it should have been submitted today. I'm not sure if he was able to meet that deadline. The negotiations with the landowners, I believe that is now substantially complete. And we have sought some financing through an arrangement with the federal government in order for us to proceed with that project. And so we anticipate that we will have a groundbreaking on that project this year. That is the intention, that we should be able to proceed this year. Again, a precise date I don't have. I do know that the Honorable Jeffers has said that he would like to have one final large public consultation now that the designs are done and the EIA, well, social, it's called now SIEA, social, SEIA, Social and Environmental Impact Assessment. Now that that is substantially complete, so that the public, and of course we have to publish that, make it available usually at the local library and at planning, so that members of the public can see what the social and environmental impact is likely to be. So we are going about it in a very deliberate way to ensure that once that project starts, we move to completion and we do all that we need to do upfront so that there are no delays in relation to that particular project. So we anticipate a groundbreaking this year, and I will come back to you in terms of a specific date when we expect the hospital project to restart. But just know that the hospital project has now become our #1 priority, beyond anything else. So if people are complaining about the road and all that, please understand that the hospital project has become our #1 priority. We need to finish that project. And we were delayed because of Culturama and the C50 celebrations and the homecoming, but now we're ready to move on with that. So I'll have to come back to you with precise dates, but that is the thinking at this point. Tourism, tourist arrivals, we do not yet have those statistics. It's still a little early. What the hotels and people in the industry are saying is that the patterns of consumption have changed. So people are now not booking months in advance like they used to. There's a lot of spur of the moment booking. So you could have a situation where today your bookings don't look that promising, and then next week you're full because people decide, oh, let's take a trip to Nevis for the weekend. So there's a lot of that happening. So I don't yet have numbers. I can tell you, however, that I was privileged to meet with the manager and the owner's reps at Four Seasons just last week. We had a brief coffee meeting, and they're indicating that they anticipate beating their expectations this year, surpassing their expectations, and they have substantial bookings already for next year. In fact, I believe that while this is a slow month, the month of September, Four Seasons is going to have some buyouts in the month of October. So they expect to be back fully fledged and functional very short order. And as you know, I always mention Four Seasons because that is the engine that drives the local tourism market. On that note, just to report that I came up to the press conference and left the document on my desk, but from my review of a document sent to me this morning, our 2% tourism and development levy this year for the month of August, which would have been paid in September, we have been able to secure just over $100,000, which is 13% higher than it was last year, and over 200% higher than it was in 2019. And we have used 2019 in our statistics because it's the last full year pre-COVID. You know, COVID shut us down, and then we have been trying to recover. So 2019 is our base year, and the receipts, which are paid monthly in arrears, so that's for the month of August, that would have been paid in September, tell us that we're over 200% higher than we were in 2019, and some 13% or so higher than we were last year. And so far this year, our tourism revenue directly from that 2%, and just for the members of the press, that's the 2% that we use to fund the activities for marketing of the Nevis Tourism Authority. So that 2% is now just about 6.6% higher this year to date than it was last year. So if we can continue in that vein for the rest of the year, I'm hopeful that we can register at least a 10% growth over last year. So that's where we are in relation to that, and as we get closer to the season, we'll be able to tell you what numbers are looking like. But currently, I don't have those statistics available to me yet. It's only September, and the season doesn't really kick off in earnest until the middle of November. Although, as I say, Four Seasons is reporting that they have buyouts next month, October. Any more questions for me?
Good morning, Premier. Glenn Bart, SK Newsline.
Morning, Mr. Bart.
Okay. I was going to ask a question similar to what Ms. Bridgen had just asked about the tourism, because airlines such as Delta and United have been predicting downward trends in leisure tourism. And I wanted to find out, well, what have you been hearing in the source markets with regards to travel to the Caribbean, to islands like Nevis, etc. So if you have been hearing anything, do let us know. My questions relate now to two aspects. One, you have been criticized, and your colleagues have been criticized in the National Assembly as opposition members of Parliament for being too soft on the government. Not enough fire, not enough animosity, I suppose. You have addressed this matter before, but I want you to define for us what is the key approach for the opposition in the National Assembly, and what do you see, how do you see the benefits are even outside of the context of the National Assembly, in terms of the relationship between the Nevis administration and the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, in regards to the benefits that can be derived from collaboration and cooperation instead of animosity. The next question is, both islands, Nevis and St. Kitts, we're tiny islands and a very small country. Yet we have to now compete in a global context. We compete against the United States, larger countries, richer countries. We know the challenges now that we now face with the CBI and the CBI program. Tourism is always and will always be a sort of fickle industry. Any little thing happens and tourism takes a dive very quickly. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the discussion, the talk, the orientation among politicians in terms of developing the country, where do you think we need now to start looking ahead to? We talk about very often about technology, and AI is the most popular thing that's coming around these days. But how do we begin to orientate our young people towards perhaps a new kind of industry in which small, tiny countries like St. Kitts and Nevis can compete globally and can compete globally in an effective and productive way? What are your views on those?
Mr. Bart, you ask me questions sometimes which I think the responses may take quite a long time. I say that because your last question is really the question that leaders all around the region are trying to answer. Where do we position ourselves? We are a small country, but the world is not kind, or the world doesn't carve out any real exceptions because we are small countries. We are required to adhere to the same standards, whether it's in trade or otherwise. The years, for example, when you had a protective trade regime for small island states and small countries, all of those have disappeared. So we are, in every which way, you're absolutely correct, competing head-on with major countries around the world, countries that are whales compared to us, mere minnows. And so it is difficult to decide, where do we pitch our tent? How do we position ourselves? I feel that St. Kitts and Nevis has some advantages, because even though we are small, one of the things, even in the natural environment, when you're small, you tend to be more nimble, you tend to be faster, tend to be able to react and respond to situations in a way that allows you to seize some advantages. I feel that we need to start to think outside the box a bit. Sometimes we are kept back by our fears, and as a result of that, we don't take decisions. I can tell you sometimes, as the person charged with leading Nevis, you sometimes feel that you know what the right decision is, but there's that element of what will the response of people be. So if you tell somebody that you're going to have to take away benefit, or you're going to have to do whatever because you're looking longer term, you understand that there's a price to be paid for that. And sometimes that fear prevents leaders from taking bold decisions. And if you look back at the history of our own country, you can really identify a handful of bold decisions that you can say were transformational. Mandatory secondary education. Adult suffrage, of course, should have been significant. Independence. Social Security. I'm told that when Social Security was proposed, there was considerable opposition. People say, you're taking away our money. Right? Today, everybody is so grateful that Social Security exists. Independence, I think I might have mentioned that. Citizenship by investment. The bold step that it would have taken in 1983, 84 to set up citizenship by investment, to say that we are going to leverage our citizenship for investment. And St. Kitts Nevis spawned a global industry, now worth billions of dollars across the globe. Malta, Cyprus, even the great UK and US and Canada, Portugal, Antigua, St. Lucia, Grenada, Dominica, all of them have a variation of something started here in St. Kitts and Nevis. It tells me that we can be a global leader. What are our strengths? Our people. St. Kitts and Nevis, our people are our main asset. Our people are bright, we're capable, and we just need to look at young Kiana Warner and what she has just done, to look at young Ral J. Williams and what he did, young Neela Jones and what she did, beating the entire region. Wherever we go in this world, wherever we have settled, you can always find people from St. Kitts Nevis at the top of their game and doing well globally. I feel that we need to harness the strength of those people, many of whom are in the diaspora, and say to them that it is time for them to come home. And I want to clarify what I mean immediately, because I don't necessarily mean a physical return. When I say come home, I mean in terms of their commitment, in terms of their drive, resolve to help this country of ours progress. We do not have the human capacity here on our own, just 50,000 souls, to take us to where we need to be. We need to leverage the brain power, the intellectual superiority, I would even call it, of our people that exists externally, our people who are doing great things in the United States and in Canada and the United Kingdom and all around the world. A chap that I went to school with, the other day I learned that he is now heading a significant hospital facility, meaning he's the man in charge in the United Kingdom. Yet here we are struggling with health care and having difficulties. How do we say to people like that? Remember, it's Morning Star you're from. Hey, Nevis, we want you to help us. So I think that one of the things we need to do is to see how we can position that bridge between those of us who are here and those of us who are abroad, and have one St. Kitts and Nevis that people can contribute to in a meaningful way. I want to, in that vein, commend our diaspora unit. I feel good about that, Mr. Bart, because it started when I was there as Minister of Foreign Affairs, but it has continued. I think you have Ambassador Larry Vaughan and you have Ambassador Swalwyn who are there, and they've really been doing, Christine Walwyn, they've really been doing an excellent job in bridging that gap. And they just had a diaspora conference, as you know. So I think we need to leverage our people. I also feel that we need some bold decisions. We have a whole world out there in relation to digital currency, and we are afraid of it. That's the honest truth. The idea that on my phone I could have my wealth, and simply by touching a portal, the wealth is transferred. I buy a car, I buy a house, that kind of thing. The issue that has continually been raised is one of regulation. How do you regulate it? But nobody in the region, in my view, has really been paying attention to becoming a leader in that space. And we can here in St. Kitts and Nevis if we paid attention to it and brought in the experts and developed the framework to have digital currencies being a part of our financial mix. We have a financial services sector already in Nevis. Even as we speak, we have government representatives in Argentina who are there promoting the financial services sector. But can we do more in relation to that? Can we look at places like Cayman and BVI and Bermuda and see how it has been transformational for them? We can become world leaders as well in relation to aspects of financial services. We have the marijuana industry. I know now bigger countries like Canada have jumped in and have dominated, but can we develop unique products here, unique to us, value-added products that we can become global leaders on? Antigua, I believe, has they call it black pineapple. I think they call it in Antigua, which I gather is sought after globally. What can we do that make us global leaders? I had a conversation that I sought to engage with, as I do sometimes on social media. I'm an avid Facebook user, as people know. And I said that I was privileged recently to travel to Switzerland. And in Switzerland, it's not a big country. I think they have about 28 million people, if memory serves. 28 million? I think so. And Switzerland is famous for so many things. Switzerland is famous for their chocolates. And then we're going to cocoa in Switzerland. Switzerland is famous for their watches. Switzerland is famous for its banking. Switzerland is famous for its hospitality and its hospitality training. Some of the best known hospitality training schools in the world are in Switzerland. Switzerland is famous for its engineering and its ingenuity. World famous. Switzerland is famous for its wines. When I went there, I was shocked to see the extent of vineyards that are planted here. And I asked myself, I said, well, this little country could be famous for so many things, globally famous. What are we in St. Kitts and Nevis famous for? Jamaica may claim reggae music. They may claim Usain Bolt and athletics. But Trinidad may claim the steel pan and soca. But look around the rest of the region. What can we really say? St. Lucia may say we had 2 Nobel laureates. But what can St. Kitts and Nevis say? It's a question we must ask ourselves, that we are globally famous for. And what, therefore, do we need to do to develop 1 or 2 niche areas that we can be excellent at? And I think it is not beyond our capacity. You mentioned AI. We need to prepare ourselves. Why aren't we teaching coding in our schools? NIA has been talking about developing a project there for some time. Why can't we become a nation that's multilingual? We have been teaching Mandarin now in Nevis as a pilot program for the past 4 or 5 years. St. Kitts has not yet adopted the program. But why can't we have children who are multilingual? You come here and you want to speak Swahili, you want to speak Spanish, you want to speak French, you want to converse in Mandarin. These are ambitions that are not beyond us, beyond our capacity, but I think we need bold decisions to be made. And we need the support, because the problem that we have sometimes is that, I go back to the Social Security example. I'm told that when it was introduced, people were upset in some quarters. Now, with the benefit of, 50 years or thereabouts of Social Security, people can see, touch, and feel the benefits of Social Security. But you would understand that those who introduced it took a political risk. People say, you're touching my money, taking money out of my pocket, killing poor people. We hear these kind of refrains all the time. And unfortunately, some of us are afraid of that. And so the safe bet is to do nothing and to just meander along. Because only when you start to do something do the critics come out to try and attack. So, Mr. Bart, you've asked a question that we can probably have a discussion, and I don't know they're right or wrong answers. I just feel that those far brighter and more capable than me we need to draw on their expertise and say, what areas do you think? I mean, I was talking to somebody recently who's a senior executive with Microsoft from Nevis. And I learned that Microsoft is opening data centers all around the world. How do we compete for that? How did India, notwithstanding that India is a big country with a big population, but how did India get to a point where they are creating some of the leading software engineers in the world? It wasn't by accident. These are things that governments put their weight behind and say, we're going to push it. And so, for me, it's very important that we get to that point. The airlines, you say, are predicting a downturn in leisure. I have not seen any indication yet that will impact us. But I would ask you to to appreciate that sometimes when we hear the big companies like United and they make a prediction, they're looking at the global position. And you may have niche markets like to the Caribbean or whatever, which continue to do well despite the global position. Opportunities for collaboration. I just went through the Aspire program. We have had other programs here, Back to School, CBI Dividend, STEP, LIFT. There are a number of programs which the people of Nevis have benefited from and have access to because we are seeking to create a single space in terms of our country. We are saying to people now, forget about the little 2 miles of water that separates us. The man in Cotton Grove and the man in Kearn ought to be able to benefit the same from whatever is available in the country. And I believe that that relentless effort on my part, which is now over a decade and a half old, that has been taking root and that we are now no longer looking askance when somebody from Nevis is given a position, for example. Look at Yasmin Clark, now the Chief Magistrate. Why? Because she's the most qualified, the most experienced. In the old days, she's from Nevis, now she can't get that position. I believe that we are slowly, Mr. Bad, getting to where we need to be as a country. And you may not see it and I may not see it, but I believe our children and grandchildren will see it. And that's what we need to do. People have criticized me. In fact, a lady called me the other day from St. Kitts and said to me, why you don't give up the leader of the opposition and give it to somebody down here so that they could really provide some robust opposition to the government? And my response to her was, in hindsight, a little rude. But I said to her, to get leader of the opposition, you must win seats. That's what you must do. There's a process. And so we went to the polls and we won 3 seats. Those are all that what Nevis had to offer. If they had 5, we would have won the 5, but they only had 3. So we won the 3. You can't just come and demand a position without having what the Constitution requires for you to have the position. For a long time, we have viewed opposition in the country, and I have been there. I reflected as I'm now coming to the twilight of my political career, that I started out as leader of the opposition. Some people don't remember that. That was my first position. In 2007, I was leader of the opposition. It has now come full circle where I'm leader of the opposition again. And for a long time, I was of the view that to be opposition, you must oppose. You must kick and scratch and fight and argue, and everything you must say is wrong. But I've had the benefit now of some experience in government. I've seen it from both sides. I've had the experience now of age, and I believe with age should come some wisdom. And I'm realizing that the country, already small and already polarized, does not and cannot benefit if the politicians continue to withhold their ideas because they happen to be in opposition. If they continue to lie and distort what a government might be trying to do. So I come here today and I tell you Aspire sounds like a good program. If it's implemented right, it could be transformational. That's not me abdicating my responsibility as leader of the opposition. When we had our meeting yesterday with the cabinet secretary, we shared with him some views that we had that could make the program even better. So what should we do? And I always use the example. You've heard it from me, no doubt, Mr. Bad. In my youth, young career as a politician, I used to be on my radio show. And I, from even then, never offered a criticism unless I also could offer a solution. Because criticism is easy. Any of us could criticize. But how do we make a situation better? That is harder. And so I was on radio, and I was a very robust person in opposition. I was young, had a lot of energy. And I remember the Parry-led administration was then in charge in Nevis. And a fellow who was a good advisor and supporter of mine, he called me and he said, "Mark, you're talking too much." I said, "What do you mean I'm talking too much?" He said, "Man, everything them fellows do, you're criticizing them." I said, "That's good, but no give them no suggestion, no give them no recommendation. Keep those to yourself so that when you get in, you could put those and implement them. And I asked him a question, and I remember it like yesterday. I said to him, if Nevis has only one dock, Charlestown dock down here in town, and you see a cruise ship coming into that dock, traveling at high speed, and you recognize that unless the cruise ship slows down, it is going to hit and destroy the dock. Excuse me. You see the sole dock being threatened because a cruise ship is coming in too fast. It's going to hit and mash it up. Wouldn't you sound the alarm and ask the cruise ship to slow? He said, no. Let the cruise ship mash it up, and when you get in, you fix it back. That is at that point as a young politician that I took him out of the category as advisor and put him in the category as friend. Because I said, this is bad advice. But unfortunately, a lot of our people see that as politics. Criticize everything, curse everything. Even sometimes if you're getting the benefit, you pretend as if there's no benefit. You drive on a brand new road every day, and you say the roads aren't being done. I had a classic example. I hope he's listening. My good friend called in the other night on a radio program and said, we're spending money stupidly trying to fix up the venues for Culture Armor 50. Can't believe we're wasting money on that. The next morning, he boss man called me and tell me, imagine this boy walking with me up here on the same project. He walking with me on the same project. I'm going to call the radio station and go say, it's stupidness we're doing. Spending money to develop the complex. And that's where he's making a bread. He just tells you. But I don't believe, and I think with the benefit now of time and wisdom and age, I don't believe, Mr. Bart, that opposition is there only to be vitriolic, to be negative, and to offer criticism. If people pay attention to what I've been saying since I am back in Parliament as leader of the opposition, I have tried wherever possible to offer my critique of what is proposed, but also to offer my suggestions as to how it can be made better. And I will tell you that in my experience, you get more done. If you come in and you start to cuss and say, are you stupid, and are you crazy, and are you this and are you that, the hackles go up and people tend to become very defensive. But if rather you go in and you say, okay, I see what you're doing here, but I suggest that this might help, you find that just the tone and the approach, people say, well, yeah, that's a good idea, let's incorporate it. And you get more done that way. So there will be a time, no doubt, for the politics and the pick-on and the back and forth. But I think the country would benefit from politicians who exhibit some maturity and understand that at the end of the day, a rise in St. Kitts and Nevis, a good quality of life in St. Kitts and Nevis, benefits everybody. And this notion of preaching how bad things are and how terrible things are and the sky is falling, when you know that that is not the case, that you're just trying to mislead people, just like the headline, that we owe CXC money. So I think that we need to get away from that. And for those who tell me I've got soft and they don't like this version of me, I've said to them, listen, I'm an old man now. I'm trying my best to be at peace with all men and with God. That is what I need to do now. So when I come, I'm making the points that I need to make. I don't have nobody to cuss. I'm making the points and putting out the accurate information. And I am making the appeal to the people of Nevis that they continue to support my party because we have delivered, and this is what we intend to deliver. When I hear from the other side what they intend to deliver, what they have to offer, then we can discuss that. As you know, Mr. Bart, in the last election, the other side in Nevis did not even bother to publish a manifesto. My conclusion from that is they didn't even have one idea that they could put on paper. Nobody could be vexed with them. Because if they got into government and they did nothing, they could always say, well, we never promised anything. We never put one idea. You don't believe me, check. No manifesto was published by the NRP in the last election. They say, we're not bother with that. And so we need to be mindful of what we do and how we do it. and the country needs ideas from all quarters. Sometimes, Mr. Bart, you get the best insight from somebody who is opposed to you because they're looking at it at an angle that you didn't see. If your ears are open enough and your mind is open enough to hear, you can sometimes improve something and make it better. And ultimately, if we're serving the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, then let us do that and let that be our focus. Any other questions for me?
Ms. Budgeon, once again, Vaughan Radio, and this is my last question.
But you know, I have all day with you now. You could just ask whatever you want to ask. Yes.
We will be having the banning of plastics and styrofoam containers shortly. Can you educate or share with the public what sort of replacements will therefore be in place, especially for restaurants and other food vendors? Thank you.
Excellent question. The banning of plastics, as you know, we've talked about this in Nevis for the last decade. The federal government has now come on board, and I think they've given some dates. In terms of replacements, that's an ongoing conversation, Ms. Budgeon. I believe, however, that a lot of the hotels, a lot of the restaurants have already transitioned or in the process of transitioning. Even bottled water, and I want to commend Nelson Spring because, you know, they're now producing water in a glass bottle that is returnable and refillable. And I anticipate that while they're not yet banning plastic bottles, what they're banning now, I think, are plastic bags and single-use plastics. It will eventually get there. So it is time, I think, for our manufacturers, our water manufacturers, etc., to retool and to understand that we are, and they have an obligation, just like us, to protect the environment. So some of the restaurants, if you go to them now, they're already using paper products. I've seen paper straws, I've seen paper cups, I've seen even metal straws that I'm seeing some of them are using, and I'm also seeing that they're using paper takeaway containers. Some of them that they fold over, food is inside. You know, but I find is interesting, you know, this is a side. I went to law school in Jamaica back in 1992. And back then, we used to go and buy what we call a box food. Because they used to serve the food in a box, a paper box. Same paper box now that I see people say they're moving to get away from plastics. That's what we used to get food in Jamaica back then. So it's interesting that that technology and the ability has been with us for a very long time. So I see a lot of restaurants already moving in that direction. I think that what we're going to have to do as we approach the deadline and as government is to put some incentives in place to allow, because I'm told that plastic is cheaper than some of the paper products. So we'll have to put some incentives in place to reduce or remove the VAT and duty and stuff like that on those. I'm speaking out loud. I have not yet had that discussion or consultation with either the federal government or with the revenue authorities here. But I think that we will have to do something so that people are not made worse off. Because we don't want to make that decision and then the price of everything goes up as a result. Food is already expensive. We don't want to make it even more expensive. But we need everybody on board. We need, for example, the supermarkets to shy away from and move away from this constant bagging. I went to the supermarket the other day. The lady asked me if I wanted double bagged. And I said, no, just one bag would do. But some people with the constant plastics, you need to move away from that. And then all of us, I think, because we've had giveaways, we've had situations where these bags, grocery bags, so you could get the reusable bags that you take. And going back to, when I mentioned my recent trip, none of the supermarkets we went to offered you a bag. Whatever you bought, you had to have something to carry to it because they were not giving you any plastic. So I think, again, culture, education, trying to change our attitudes and our approaches, I think that would be helpful. So I do believe, though, that we would have to incentivize our people somehow to lessen the impact of the additional cost of them of switching to biodegradable products from what they currently use. Any other questions?
Good afternoon, Mr. Premier. My name is Bjorn, and I am a YouTube content creator with special focus on Africa and the Caribbean, and I specialize in travel and reaction videos. Mr. Premier, I was in Africa for about 4 months, and what I noticed is that many persons, they know very little about Africa and the Caribbean. My question to you is, what is your government doing and the federal government doing to bridge the gap between Africa and the Caribbean? Question number 2. Currently, the federal government of St. Kitts and Nevis do not have a representative from Nevis in cabinet. This week, the federal government took a delegation of 12 persons to the United Nations. There is also a question of fair share, which you made a number of financial arrangements that we need to be amended. There is also no attempt to amend the Constitution to give Nevis a permanent seat in the federal government. The question is, considering all of the above, do you think an independent Nevis will do better? In other words, what are your thoughts on secession for Nevis? Question number 3. You made a call, Mr. Premier, for the diaspora to come back home. What plans and programs do your government have in place to assist our returning nationals to come back home and reintegrate into the Nevisian society? Question number 3. I have 4, sorry. Question number 4. Over the years, I have heard of a number of programs. You also mentioned a number of programs that assist women and youth. The question is, what programs or plans do you have in place to assist men over the age of 35? The last question. In your presentation, you mentioned that you invite the press to have a look to see what is happening inside the schools and the school kitchen. And it's a great idea, but that is very difficult because as a content creator myself and members of the press, I can tell you that, for example, when you had the school opening, I was trying to get some lovely YouTube videos to show people how a school looks like in Nevis to open, and I was told that you need permission from the government. And also some projects that went on in the past, the same thing, I went on the site and I was trying to show people what is happening. I was told that you need permission from the government. So the question is, what is the government doing to improve freedom of the press?
Okay, Mr. Hanley, first of all, welcome back. I think that we were all enlightened by your journey to Africa. And I sat at the barber shop many a day, and you were the topic of conversation in terms of your travels and what was happening in Africa. And I think you opened a lot of eyes here. I myself have only visited the continent in the north. I've been to Morocco and I've been to Senegal, but I've not ventured as deep as you have ventured. And so I think that I ought to record my appreciation to you and say how grateful we were because we were able to see you, somebody we know, in Africa, in various parts of Africa. I think that I saw something when you were in, is it Uganda? Yeah, Uganda and Kenya, right, at one point. So I want to commend you for that because you have always indicated your love of Africa and your interest in seeing a greater engagement with Africa. And you have taken it the next step. You have actually gone there and showed us what it looks like. The truth is, I think why your journey was so fascinating is because most of us have no concept of Africa. And so I'm not surprised that you say Africa has no concept of us, because we have no concept of Africa either. That's a product of many things, including colonialism, where we were somehow brought here and separated from the motherland. And many of us, Mr. Hanley, have no regard for that history. Many of us have no understanding of it. In fact, African people sometimes, I'm told, look down on us. And I believe sometimes we look down on African people. So we need, I think, more education. We need a better understanding. And that's why I start by commending you, because I thought what those videos did was to bring home the reality of life in Africa. I remember I saw you doing something with some banana. I can't remember what you call it, but the way they cook the banana. Matoke. I thought that was quite fascinating. Okay. What can we do? We now have the Afro-Exim Bank that has been engaged with Caribbean governments. We now had meetings between the African Union and CARICOM. You recall former president of Kenya, Kenyatta, was here. And Mia Mottley of Barbados has been a champion. The relationship with Africa, I think, is critical. You would have heard me say on more than one occasion that with the 53 or 54 countries in the African Union and the 13 or so that are in CARICOM, that we represent collectively almost 1/3 of the countries in the globe. Could you imagine if Africa and the Caribbean joined forces on important issues at the United Nations? Our voice would be a voice that every country in the world would have to respect. And so I think that there are opportunities. I know that when I was foreign minister, there was the opportunity to open an embassy in Addis Ababa. I know that there have been opportunities to open embassies elsewhere. And I realize now that during my tenure, we did accredit an ambassador to Kenya, and I believe, if memory serves, to Ghana and to South Africa. But I believe that countries like Barbados have gone further and have opened embassies in Kenya, I know. And I have heard that CARICOM is minded to open something in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, which is the seat of the African Union. I say all that to say that greater effort is needed for us to engage with Africa. And the people-to-people engagement, because you did not go to Africa as any diplomat or as anybody other than Bjorn Hanley from St. Kitts Nevis. But that people-to-people engagement, I think, is also critical. We actually had some bloggers who were here during the Mango Fest from Kenya. And I was quite surprised. They drove around, they had a lot to say, and these are people who are widely followed. With technology, it also allows us to do more. And so I'm hopeful, Mr. Hanley, that the message that you have brought and the message that some of us continue to preach will lead to greater engagements. I always speak about my time as foreign minister simply because I was on a particular path with Africa. I was the foreign minister that engaged diplomatically with 14 new African nations during my tenure. And I negotiated visa waiver arrangements with 12 new African nations during my tenure. That is something that I have criticized this current government for, federal government, because I think they've stopped. What we had was a great momentum going. By now, we should have had diplomatic relations and visa waiver access to all of Africa if we had kept up that momentum. Having traveled there, I'm sure you would have, no doubt, in some countries have to get a visa or experience some difficulties at the border. We should not. And we are part of the 6th region of Africa. That is the diaspora. And I believe that we should actively seek out these opportunities. And in my experience, Africa has been willing and accommodating in relation to these matters. It just requires us to have that initiative. So I agree with you. I believe that we need to do more. The UN delegation, you said there's nobody from Nevis. Well, there's nobody from Nevis in the cabinet. You're right. Nobody in the federal government. We are only there as members of the opposition, and no invitation was extended to anybody from Nevis to attend. I'm comforted, though, that the Prime Minister, while he has been there, has been in touch. In fact, he has called me twice since he has been there to discuss some matters on which he were relevant to Nevis, specifically geothermal. And we have continued to have that rapport and that conversation. But that absence of Nevis, sadly, is not new. We went into independence in 1983. and there was a joint NRP-PAM government until 2005. No, what am I saying? 1995, forgive me, 1995. And then from 1995, Nevis was not nowhere close to cabinet until 2010, when Patrice Nesbitt would have been named Attorney General and then after Minister of Foreign Affairs. So from 1995 to 2010, 15 years, there was nobody from Nevis there. And then from 2010 to 2015, there was Patrice Nesbitt. And then we took over in Team Unity. And we find ourselves now in a situation where nobody from Nevis again is there. And we all understand that the way that the Constitution is constructed, the only way somebody from Nevis is going to be in cabinet is if somebody from Nevis is needed to form a government. That's the reality. Right? I suppose some will argue that in 2010, Patrice Nesbitt was not needed to form a government because at the time, Dr. Douglas had 6 seats. But we understood among the 6, he had Timothy Harris and Sam Conda, who were more off the reservation than on the reservation. And so we understood that Dr. Douglas in 2010 also needed help. And that's why he reached over and grabbed Patrice Nesbitt and made him his Attorney General to get numbers in the cabinet. So, Mr. Handley, what do we do about that? Sometimes it is what it is. There will come a time, no doubt again, when those seats in Nevis are going to be relevant to forming a government. There will come a time, no doubt, where in the future, the parties that are now currently island parties and not national parties may become national parties. So, for example, the CCM or the NRP or whatever may come out of those 2 parties may well start to run candidates all over St. Kitts as well. The Labour Party, the People's Action Movement, the PLP, or whoever were to emerge may start to say, hey, why don't we run candidates in 11 constituencies? Right now the Boundaries Commission is meeting, and it may well lead to an increase in constituencies. So these are all considerations which may come in the future. But part of the problem, I think, on the political level is that you now have a situation where in every election, Mr. Hanley, 8 seats are only contested by parties based in St. Kitts, and 3 seats are only contested by parties based in Nevis. There's no party that is a national party. The St. Kitts Labour Party call themselves the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. They should take Nevis out the name, because they have nothing to do with Nevis. The People's Action Movement should say the St. Kitts People Action Movement, because, again, Concerned Citizens Movement should be the Nevis Concerned Citizens Movement. Well, at least NRP is honest. They're the Nevis Reformation Party. Because none of the parties are national. So that, at the start of every election, you already have that inbuilt situation. That unless some party in St. Kitts gets 6 seats, you're going to have that horse trading and that back and forth. You say constitutional reform and whether or not that needs to happen, I agree. It has been talked about a lot. It has not yet happened. And I think it has not happened because it is not something that has excited the attention or any real controversy. And we will wait to see whether or not that can happen. Secession for Nevis. There was a point in my life when I was an avowed secessionist. I think you know that I advocated quite strongly. I think with the benefit of time, and as again, having been in government, and realizing how hostile the world is to small countries, I feel that if we have a chance to make St. Kitts and Nevis the best small island state in the world, we should give it that chance. If, however, that does not work, then it's a matter for the people of Nevis to decide. So, I, for example, do not support the removal of Clause 113 from the Constitution. Some say it ought to be removed. I don't support that because I feel that the people of Nevis should have the opportunity to determine their own destiny if they so choose. What I'm hopeful is that through a relationship, through the tightening of our bonds, through fair share, defined as I've tried to define it today, that the people of Nevis and the people of St. Kitts can so live together, work together, function together, build together, that the impetus, the push-pull factors that would have led to the cries of Nevisians to secede, that those will fade. That's what I'm thinking can happen if that relationship. Because when you look at secession, secession has always been a reaction to something. When Mr. Daniel and his team would have led the illegal secession vote, back then the illegal referendum, it was a reaction to the treatment that they were getting from Bradshaw and the Labour Party. In 1996 it was, 1997 when we had the secession vote, it was a reaction to what Nevis was experiencing from the then Denzel Douglas-led Labour Party in government. There was a point some people forget when under Attorney General Delano Bart, they proposed to pass legislation in St. Kitts that would essentially take over the offshore sector in Nevis. By stroke of the legislative pen, something that we had built, they would just take it over. Say all companies had to re-register in Bastia. And Nevis would have seen millions of dollars wiped out of its economy overnight. So these are the things that we reacted to. It was always a reaction. I feel that if we are to go into independence for the island of Nevis, it can't be a reaction. It has to be something that is planned, that we work towards, that we educate our people and understand what the implications are going to be for us. So that's my view in relation to that. I think ultimately it's an issue for the people of Nevis, and I respect their right to make that issue. The plans for our diaspora to come home, we are currently finalizing a survey. I've asked the assistance of some experts in that regard, and what we hope to do is to really find out from people living abroad what would be some of the most important factors for you if you want to come home. Is it tax? Is it healthcare? Is it infrastructure? Housing? What would be some of the most important factors? So we are working on that. But I will tell you, Mr. Hanley, the call has already been noticed. In fact, I am hoping to make a trip to Bermuda, where I hope to engage with Bermudans, because I'm told that a significant percentage of Bermudans trace their roots to St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I'm already making arrangements to go there. And this will be my message to them when I go, because Bermudans are very wealthy. Bermudans, in terms of their pensions, are able to come here and live very comfortably when we look at the exchange rate and we look at the different cost of living. And many of them love Nevis, and we already have some who are coming back to St. Kitts and Nevis and are doing so in an organic way. Nobody has put anything in place for them. So I am saying that we could probably do even better if we put something in place for them. What do we have for men over 35? I don't know that there's any specific program that we have for men over 35, Mr. Hanley. Most men at 35, you expect that they're on their own feet already. They're doing things for themselves. They would have gone to school, they have their families, they're doing what they need to do. So I agree, men need their fair share. But if you're 35, we expect that by then you're into your life, you're into your profession, you know, whatever it may be. So we don't have any specific thing for men who are over 35. But I hear you, and it is something perhaps that we need to look at. Press access to schools and various sites, it's really just sometimes a matter of protocol. It's not that we're trying to restrict the press, but oftentimes we ask that you get the permission, because then we know. The principal would know, Mr. Hanley is coming to do some filming, the PS would know, you know, the people who are necessary would know. And we try also, because sometimes it's an issue of security, you don't want people just showing up, walking through a school, walking through the sites. It might be disruptive for teachers. So at least the principal knows, and if you want to go on any site, you just make a call. Principal say Mr. Hanley or Ms. Hewlett or Mr. Barth is coming to do something, and that just goes up the chain. So it's not a question that we're trying to restrict, it's more one of just the proper protocol. Okay? Any more questions for me? The rains have come. It's a good point to end the press conference. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. God willing, I hope to see you next month for another edition of the Premier's Press Conference. And Mr. Hanley, once again, welcome home. All right, thank you very much.